Venters, the other day we were talking about teachers doing lewd acts to students, and it was a female teacher, and a couple of weeks before that we spoke about another female teacher that had been acting inappropriately with one of her students. And it got me to thinking, back in the day we had that Mary Kay Letourneau situation, if you remember. What made that so fantastical back in the day, or so amazing, was the fact that it was so rare. You would hear about male teachers regularly, right? A couple times a year. And now I'm sure with male teachers it probably happens all the time. But the real disturbing thing is that I'm starting to hear a lot more cases about these female teachers. To give you an idea, just since the beginning of the year, I've heard about a half dozen cases. And here's what I'm noticing. Almost all the teachers involved are very attractive women. Most of them are married with children of their own, so they would never ever want somebody like them messing with their children, right? But here they are being predators towards their male students. Then you start to hear people talk about this term MAPS, M-A-P-S. I believe it stands for minor attracted persons or something like that. And they're trying to take the stigma away from it. And it just makes you wonder, why are they doing this? Why are they trying to say that for some people it's natural to have these unnatural attractions to people that are much younger than them? And then I started thinking, maybe it's because they're starting to notice this same trend. That instead of it being all male teachers doing this with female or male students, we're starting to see an uptick, and a fast, big uptick, of female teachers that are predators. So today I wanted to go over 5 that I've just heard about in the last 2 or 3 months. Now keep in mind, there was more to choose from. I could have probably found a dozen or more, but I didn't have that long to do it. I have to do this while working and doing the show. So I took down 5. Let's go over these disturbing cases, and in each case, I'll show you the person's picture, and you can actually see that these are women that should have no trouble getting somebody their own age. With men, sometimes you say, well, maybe they're pathetic, maybe they're really perverse, right? But you don't really think that they're capable, at least in some cases, of finding somebody their own age. With these women, they have no excuse. Not that anybody ever has an excuse, but I'm just saying, you would think these would be really homely, ugly-looking women, but that's not the case at all. The world I grew up in was one where guys were constantly asking women out to their face, or maybe occasionally over the telephone. But the only way to get that done over the phone is if the person already knew who you were, right? So predominantly people would ask people out to their face. Well, now we live in a world where that just doesn't really happen anymore. So maybe these teachers aren't having men come up to them, and the only people that are constantly around them are these teenage and pre-teenage boys. This first woman, who again I think is a good-looking woman, is 31-year-old Brittany Fortenberry. Fortenberry was a former teacher at Eminence High School in Morgan County, Indiana. Guys, she was charged with 2 counts of dissemination of matters harmful to minors in August of 2024. So again, just a couple months back. Her charges stem from allegations that she sent inappropriate messages and videos to students, including images of sex toys and a stripper pole that she had at her home. Could you imagine going to your teacher's house and she's got a stripper pole? Fortenberry was also accused of having a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old student. She was providing him with drugs, I'm assuming that's pot and booze, right? Maybe something more, and threatening to harm herself if he told anyone about the relationship. So apparently her game plan was to cry and act like she was going to throw herself off the second story of a building in order for this boy not to tell on her. The real reason I bring this up is because I've grown up in a world where guys are always the creeps. And in many cases, guys are really creepy and horrible people. Not all of them, obviously. I think most of us are good people. But there's some horrible, creepy people out there. I always assumed it was 99% men. As I get older, I'm starting to realize maybe it's a little bit closer to 50-50. I'm sure there's still more men psychos out there than female. But is it just me, or is every day we're hearing about a female bully that's beating up other girls at school? Or we hear about a female that's taking her husband and taking away his life, right? Or scamming somebody. It seems like women are really starting to get kind of out of control at a higher clip. We've always known that there's been women out there that are a little nutso and crazy. But maybe it's becoming a more regular thing. By the way, here's a funny thing about this Fortenberry lady. She actually was blaming her extreme weight loss on her crimes. Her trim body, according to her, was making her feel sexually vibrant again. So imagine you start taking these injections, these drugs, the terzepatides, right? And the Mounjaros. You start taking this, and all of a sudden you start losing 50 or 60 pounds. You look in the mirror and you start to feel like, hey, I'm regaining my youthful looks. And then all of a sudden you go to school and you're surrounded by 12, 13, 14-year-old boys, and it ends up starting to get to her head. That's what Fortenberry is basically claiming. I know you and I are thinking that's nuts, so that's ridiculous, but that's what she's claiming. Now, is she doing that to get a lesser sentence? Yeah, but no matter how you look at it, she finds those people attractive. If all of a sudden you go from being a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, you lose 40, 50, 60 pounds, all of a sudden you feel like a solid 8, a solid 6.2, right? Who knows? And all of a sudden you've got the boys in your class flirting with you. Who knows? It's got to be something like that. The teachers I had, female and male, just seemed like really upstanding citizens. They really did. Tell me that you guys grew up with the same teachers I had. The teachers I had might as well have been my mom and dad, because they cared about my grades, they cared about my well-being, they cared about the other fellow students in the classroom. They just cared. And you would never see them doing anything that was crazy. Now, I came to find out as I got older that apparently some teachers would go to the teacher's lounge and smoke. Did you guys ever hear those rumors too, that half of your teachers were cigarette smokers back in the day? Well, that was back in the day. From what I understand, only half the number of people even smoke nowadays compared to back in the 80s and 90s. So even that is probably a rarity now. But that was one of the rumors that I can remember back in the day was, hey, Mrs. So-and-so is a smoker. Dulce Flores is a 33-year-old Spanish teacher, or was, at Riverbank High School in California, where she was arrested for allegedly engaging in an unlawful sexual relationship, get this, with a 17-year-old male student back in 2023. Something in her head said, hey, he's practically 18, it's nobody's business, I'll do what I want to do. I bet she wishes she could take that back now. The investigation began after a school official was tipped off about the alleged relationship, leading to Flores's arrest by the Stanislaus County Jail. Flores has been charged with 1 count of unlawful sexual intercourse with a minor. In case you're wondering what she did with him, it sounds like she did everything. And once again, she was booked into the Stanislaus County Jail with a bail set for $20,000. That's one of those that if they made a bail that small for a male, I would think the male would pay that and then try to get out of the country. They ought to up that and make that a little higher. One of the comments we're going to get to in the future basically alludes to the idea that I can't believe people try to get away with this stuff. And if you think about it, it is kind of crazy. We live in a world where everybody has a cell phone on them. Half these kids have these smartwatches, which can probably record everything that's happening at the push of a button. I say that because I don't own a smartwatch and I never have. But for those of you that have a smartwatch, tell me, does it have the same aspects that a phone does? If so, anybody could be hitting a record button at any time and you wouldn't even know about it, you know? Even behind me right now, I'm not looking behind me, but my camera is. If somebody did something and it was caught on my camera, that could be the one, piece of footage that sends them away to jail for a long time. It's hard to believe that people take the chance. It doesn't seem worth it. And this is one of those crimes that, let's be honest, it's embarrassing. Could you imagine somebody, catching you do this, and you're in your early 30s, and now you got to some way, somehow survive in this country for the next 50 years with people knowing what you did? Holy moly, doesn't anybody have any shame anymore? 35-year-old Jacqueline Ma, take a look at her, because she was the former teacher of the year, guys, in San Diego County. She was arrested back in 2023, again, just a year and a half ago, for engaging in sexual relationships with two of her students. Guess how old these students were? 11 and 12. So again, you're talking about a person that is looking not at kids that are 17, 18, 19, 20, which would already be shameful. She's looking at kids that are 11 and 12. Literally a year or two earlier, they would have been playing with toys. And all of a sudden, she's introducing them to like adult things. It's awful. Ma initially pleaded not guilty. She pled not guilty to 21 felony counts, including lewd acts on a child. However, after new evidence emerged, the charges were amended to include lewd acts under duress, which carry more severe penalties. So Ma, in February of 2025, pled guilty to 4 felony counts, including lewd acts with a child under 14 with duress. This plea deal was made for a lesser sentence, but she still faces significant jail time. It's funny, her last name is Ma. She's doing horrible things here. Do you guys remember in the movie Goonies, when Sloth looked at his mom and he's like, "Ma, you've been bad"? For some reason, this lady's name reminds me of the Goonies and that one scene. Sloth loved Chunk. Don't touch Chunk there, Ma. Ma, you've been bad. Laura Karen, a 34-year-old. Notice these people are all in their early 30s. It's really bizarre. Why is it that age group? We're going to find out in the future that scientists poisoned these people when they were in the womb with their vaccines. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. Laura Karen, a 34-year-old 5th grade teacher from Middle Township Elementary School, was arrested on charges of aggravated sexual assault and endangering the welfare of a child. Karen is accused of having relationships with a student who was only 13 years old at the time. On top of that, here's what makes hers the worst. She actually had the 13-year-old's child in 2019. She was apparently abusing this child from the years 2016 through 2020, and she was 28 years old when she gave birth to his son, and I believe he was 13 at the time. The case came to light. God, you're not going to believe this. The case came to light after the victim's father made a social media post in December of 2024, which is just a couple months back. It was raising concerns about the resemblance between Karen's child. So in other words, this teacher starts showing pictures of her children online, and the dad noticed the uncanny resemblance to him, his son, and their family. They all looked like him and his son. That's how he tipped off the police. He knew that nobody looks just like them unless you're related to them. The investigation revealed that the victim and his siblings had been staying at Karen's home during the period of the alleged abuse. So they know that you're going to be pregnant with your child for what, a good 9 months. They did the math and they realized that that's when Miss Karen was, I guess, babysitting these boys and had them over at the house. And if you watch any of these videos, they go into detail how the stuff happened, and it's really raunchy and really gnarly, and it really paints these women in just the worst picture possible. When I was growing up, I thought that all women were motherly. I thought that all women were kind of almost like saints compared to guys. And then as you get older, you start to realize there's a lot of good men in this world. There's a lot of genuine good guys that care and would never do any bad things. And on the flip side, you start to see that there's a lot of women that aren't so good. Now, don't get me wrong, I still believe that most women and men are perfectly good people, but not nearly as perfect as I used to believe. You see somebody that's a teacher, and when she smiles, it looks like a nice person smiling. And when you see pictures of her family, they look like a happy, well-to-do family. And you just never know that behind those eyes, there's a person there that has a perverted sexual thought at kids. It's really, really weird. 30-year-old mom of two, Brittany Lee Gray. You know you're really bad if they mention all three of your names. She was accused of raping a student, then tried to get rid of the evidence. So not only does she do bad, but she tries to hide it too. And I know you're thinking, well, aren't they all trying to hide it? I think they all are, but she must have went a step above this. So Brittany Lee Gray was a former teacher at Blair High School in Oklahoma. She was arrested in January of 2025, January 24th of 2025. So again, just a couple of weeks ago. She was charged with second degree, and destroying evidence after Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, OSBI, there in Oklahoma, revealed that she engaged in inappropriate communication and physical contact with students on multiple occasions. Again, they do it once and they think, oh my God, I can do this and no one will know. And then they keep doing it. So even when people know they did wrong, they don't stop themselves from doing it further. They keep doing it. So when you eat that cookie tonight, Fred, it's gonna lead to a second and third cookie. Don't eat that cookie. By the way, before I forget, 40 days of Lent, I'm actually thinking about going sugar-free for this next 40 days. I'll do it if one of you guys does it with me. Should we both do it for Lent? I know you're thinking, Jesse, that doesn't sound very Christian. You're only gonna give up some sort of vice for 40 days if someone joins you? No, I'm really thinking about doing it anyway, but why don't you guys do it with me? We'll all give up sugar, and then in 40 days, we'll all look like we've been deprived of sugar for a month. Speaking of deprived of sugar, I think sometimes people need to come to reality. If you're looking at kids that are literally teenagers and younger, and you're looking at them in these ways, you really got to do some self-examination. All of these women should have went on a daily walk and they could have said, you know what? I need to quit thinking this way. All people have crazy thoughts, but only truly disturbed people actually take actions on those thoughts. Most people let those crazy thoughts go in one ear and out the other, and they let it go. That's what these people need to learn how to do. Take a walk. Don't make a stupid mistake that's going to follow you for the rest of your life. And remember, if Jesse were king, he would throw you in jail forever. I don't care if you're a female or a male. If you're a bad person, I want to throw you in jail forever. If you get out, you're going to be considered lucky. Change your ways. I still think all bad guys could wake up tomorrow and change their ways, and the world would be a better place. The problem is none of these bad guys want to change until they get caught and they get in trouble. Then everybody says, I deserve a second chance. People don't necessarily deserve another chance because they don't stop until they get caught. God, Jesse, you're just too good for these people. I know I'm too good for the world, Jesus. I'm too good for this world. Okay, so now I have some comments because I wanted to hear some comments, but you might be thinking, well, what video did you get comments off of? In order to get comments, I just looked for basic teachers and students videos just to get some generic comments. But let's go over them together. At God, G-A-W-D, says, it sickens me how little gravitas is given to female predators. It's disgusting. It's not hot for teachers. Our boys have a right to be protected too. What do you think of these women? Don't you believe they deserve to be kind of prosecuted to the full extent of the law too? Would you want these women living next to you if you have your son or your grandson living with you? Are these the type of people you would want to have next to you living? These are the type of people that it's like they really need to have a bracelet on their ankle, an ankle bracelet that monitors them 24/7. At Juliana Jager says, how do these teachers not understand that they're going to get caught? ? The victims always talk, and the trail of evidence is always uncovered, and then the hammer comes down. That's a very good comment there. We live in a world where there's too many recording devices and there's too many cameras, and you never know. Right now, I'm out and about. I could have 3 or 4 different cameras from various houses that are recording me. So even when they show a ne'er-do-well walking down the street and all of a sudden he looks over and he sees something in a garage or something, it is foolish to act on that. You go in the garage, you grab some stuff that doesn't belong to you, and before you know it, the whole neighborhood knows that you're a thief. Now, I'm not saying be a good person because the cameras are there. What I'm saying is you got to learn to be a good person whether the cameras are there or not. I think the best way to look at it is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would want to have done unto you. If I leave my garage door open, I don't want you coming into my garage and stealing my tools or my property. And because I feel that way, when your garage door is open, as far as I'm concerned, you're safe. I'm not going to bother your stuff. I think if we all lived by that mantra, the world would be truly a wonderful place. Unfortunately, bad people don't give a shit. At Strawberry Thieves says, as a mother of a 7-year-old, I am beyond sick of these deviants. A lot of times, these kids, they grow up and they end up being deviants themselves, not because they were destined to be deviants, but because people end up corrupting them. When you're 10, 11, 12 years old, you should be thinking about video games and school. You should not be thinking about what your teacher's dressed as, right? Or how your teacher looks. And is your teacher going to take you in the corner and do things with you? It's really, really demented. That's why I think there needs to be a harsh punishment for this. Look, all these women look beautiful. Like they're not going to do well in prison. But at the same time, they had to have known while they were doing what they did that if they ever got caught, they were going to get serious jail time. KMC 1367 says, this is the 3rd one I've seen throughout the internet and the news just today. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm doing this video today. What if something is happening to the nature of Americans? And what I mean by that is on the women's side. Didn't we all grow up thinking that women were like the ones you could trust a little bit more? As I get older, I'm starting to realize they might be just as bad as the guys. Is there anybody that we can truly trust nowadays? I have a sad feeling the answer is no. But I know who you can trust with your daily walk. Jesse, I'm your guy. This is why we walk every day. I am not a news channel. I'm just that guy that has interesting stuff to talk about while we take our daily walk. And believe it or not, over the last 20 minutes, in addition to hearing me babble, you've gotten to witness me exercising. I do this every day. And I'm a firm believer that if you join us and you start walking every day with us, pretty soon you'll start losing weight. And even if you never lost a single pound, it's still a nice little hobby to have. Get you outside, get you breathing fresh air, and it's probably the closest thing we have to what life was like back in the 80s and 90s before we all started getting cell phones. Take a walk every single day, and when you're bored, learn to take another walk. There's something really fun about walking. It's not fun when we hear about bad news, but it's fun when we figure out that we've worked out for the day. So I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll do it again.